it's interesting when you think about the timeline of phones and cell phone usage and internet usage and computer usage. We literally have a computer in our hands all the time now, and we're able to connect all the time. I often find myself thinking, like, what did we do before the phone? What did we do before the computer?
Empowering you organically, delivering content you trust with results you love.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Empowering You Organically. I'm your host, Jonathan Hunsaker, joined by my co-host, Terry Ann Trevenin.
Hey everyone.
So today we're doing a very special episode that impacts all of us more than I think we realize. And we're going to talk about digital addiction. And there's a lot to really cover on this subject. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us we're not consciously aware of how much we're on our phones, how much we're on our laptops, how much we're working, how much we're just sucked into this digital addiction that is crept into every part of our lives.
Yeah, no doubt. It's interesting because, when we think about how we used to communicate, how we used to interact with people, how we got our messages across, nothing was instant. And now everything's instant. And so it's a big conversation right now into how social media, phone usage, internet usage is impacting us across the world. And I think more specifically in relation to kids and teens as well, because now we've gone from adults using their phone and the internet all the time to now like every kid has a phone. Every kid is on social media. Like it's mind-boggling how much we have this need for instant connection, instant reaction, instant gratification. And we're seeing it trickle down into our kids, into teenagers. It's becoming a hot topic because we're learning more and more the impact of using our phones, being on the internet, constant social connection, interaction, and instant gratification on our health and on our lives.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, it's affecting our health in such a big way, and we're not even realizing it. And you bring up the conversation of kids, and what I think is interesting is we don't address it with our kids as much because we're addicted to the screen as well, right? So it's hard to take the phone away. It's hard to take the iPad away, when you're out at dinner, things like that, because we're addicted. We're
Sure.
picking up our phone. We're checking Instagram and Facebook. And so our kids are picking up and they're learning it from us. And it's hard for us to discipline them and tell them, hey, no screen time, when we're sitting there, with broken necks, looking down the whole time, texting and checking it, checking out what's going on online, like we're going to miss something, and all the other fast-pacedness, if that's a word, that happens with being connected to the internet now.
The dictionary according to Jonathan.
The dictionary according to me.
So anyway, but no, I agree. I think it's interesting when you think about the timeline of phones and cell phone usage and internet usage and computer usage. We literally have a computer in our hands all the time now, and we're able to connect all the time. I often find myself thinking, like, what did we do before the phone? What did we do before the computer? When we had to find out where to go, we had a map in our car and we looked at the map and we followed the map. And now, like, I'm even guilty of this. I'm like, if I don't have GPS, I'm not going to find that Kroger's, or I'm not going to find that Costco, because we don't know how to even find our way around anymore simply because we have this phone in our hands. Or if we have an emergency, we used to get on the landline and call the hospital, call 911. Now we have a phone where we can record things that are happening in real time. Like when we see a car accident or we see someone doing something crazy, we're recording it, we're calling 911, we're on our phones. Like, what did we do before phones? I think we're starting to forget what we did before phones because we have them all the time. They're on our bedstand when we go to bed and we're scrolling. They're on our bedstand when we wake up and we're scrolling. We're talking to people, we're texting, we're on social media, we're looking at other people's lives, we're posting about our own lives, it's all these different things. And I think there's a beautiful aspect to technology and phones and connection and communication. I also think there's a huge downfall to how much we rely on technology now and how we always have to be instantly connected and instantly gratified in things that we want and need.
I think it's drastically affecting our stress levels, right? And we know this. We know that everybody right now is inflamed constantly, right? The inflammation levels. And a lot of that comes from stress. A lot of that, we don't know how to be patient anymore. right? We don't know how to wait. We don't know how to entertain ourselves, right? By just sitting. I mean, what happened to just sitting and waiting for something, right? And staring off into space and letting your mind wander. You know, it was those times that actually allowed us to decompress, right? You're sitting at a waiting room, you're sitting at a restaurant, you're sitting doing nothing, but you're actually doing something. Your mind is processing. It's almost meditative, right? We're processing things that are going on in our lives. We're processing problems that we're facing. We're figuring it all out. And it's allowing us to really de-stress and decompress. But now we're on our phones and our computers so much that any downtime that we have, we're checking.
And we have stimulation.
And we're stimulating. We're watching a video. We're seeing what's going on Instagram. And I don't want to go down the social media rabbit hole, but we're comparing our lives to everybody else's filtered pictures and happiness that they're sharing. They're not sharing all the sadness that's going on in their life. They're just sharing the good stuff. So now not only are we not decompressing, but now we're watching social media and now we're feeling bad about ourselves and our lives because we're comparing it to the best parts of other people's lives. And it's really killing us. I mean, listen, I love having technology. I think technology has its place. I think that it's really time for us to get control of the use of technology and how often we use it. And we need to set an example for not just our kids, but for our friends and for anybody else that's in our lives by being the ones to put the phone down.
Sure. You know, it's interesting too. The other day I wrote a post on social media of all places about being intentional with what we're posting on social media too. I think a lot of this boils down to intention, whether it's our phones, whether it's social media. You know, not only are we on our phones all the time, not only are we on the internet all the time, not only are we on something related to technology all the time, but we've lost our filters for humanity and that thing that connects all of us and that thing that makes us people and makes us unique and makes us think and act and do things in certain ways, consequences and choices. And, you know, I wrote this post about how like we're no longer intentional with what we're saying. We'll just go out and behind our keyboards, behind our screens, we'll say whatever we want to say without thought behind how it impacts people. Now, I'm not crossing the line of saying you need to care about what every single person in the world thinks about you. And there's important things to be said and important messages we can convey on social media, but it goes back to this word of intention for me. Are we intentional with our time? Are we intentional with our, you know, our digital use, our technology, with the way we're using it? Are we intentional with what we say? Are we adding value to people's lives and communicating and sharing and posting? Or are we taking away from people by just thoughtlessly and carelessly posting all the time, responding, commenting? It's like we just don't even have filters in human connection anymore.
It's sad, really. I mean, and there's several areas that we're missing that human connection. I mean, you talked about using your GPS. When's the last time you stopped at a gas station and asked for directions, right? Does anybody even have the guts to do that anymore? Or are they so used to being hidden behind their phone, they don't want to go talk to a stranger?
We don't have to talk to people anymore if we don't want to. You can order your groceries online.
I mean, you can now get fast food delivered right to your house, as if driving through the fast food line wasn't, you know, quick enough. Now you can get it delivered.
There's a company called Crumble where you can get hot cookies delivered to your door, and they literally drop them on the doorstep. You don't even have to look at the person who made the cookies, who dropped the cookies off. It's like instant cookie. It's insane what we have access to. On one side, it's the most beautiful thing. On the other side, it's creating a lot of problems for us. One interesting thing I want to talk about, this is super fascinating to me. So I actually got a degree in psychology. I studied a lot about the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Excessive internet use has not been recognized as a disorder. However, the related diagnosis of gaming disorder has been included in the International Classification of Diseases. So think about that for a minute. Gaming disorder. I mean, think about that. Did anyone ever think that was going to be a thing? It's not like we're sitting here playing, board games and we're addicted to a board game. Like we're sitting, staring at a screen, having relationships with people who we can't see, constantly stimulated, constantly playing. So it's really interesting. And one of the things when it comes to this gaming disorder that isn't included and that we have to talk about is this phenomenon of digital addiction. It's not just gaming any longer. We don't just have people who are addicted to games. And I think for a while that was a thing. Before phones were so prevalent, before our phones were computers, one of the big, turning points of digital use of technology was gaming. I mean, people started creating these fantasy worlds. They were so stimulating. They were so beautiful. They were digitally designed out. It was like you could go out into this world that wasn't the real world and have, build things, have relationships, compete against people, win prizes, all of those things. And I can see where the excitement came from that. But that was really the tipping point of people no longer having to have this interaction with people, but really just kind of live behind their keyboard. Now, it's gaming disorder as far as the DSM goes, but we have to look at the digital addiction because now it really is more prevalent to be addicted to your phone than even gaming. It's not a gaming thing anymore. It's a technology thing.
I loved video games growing up. I mean, I grew up with the Atari and then went to the ColecoVision, then Nintendo, then Super Nintendo, then, Sega. And so I get all of that. And I remember when it started getting big online, I used to be very big when I was 18, 19, 20 into the first person shooters, right? And I know at that time there was the MMOs that were on there, they're massive multiplayer online games. And it was, that's where everything kind of started. And I remember I could sit down for 3, 4, 5 hours and play straight. Now the difference is, this was back when if there was a cell phone, it was a little old Nokia that barely had Snake on it. So if I left the house, if I had to go do stuff, I wasn't fully connected all the time.
Sure.
But we are now, right? So now it's almost like we live in that fantasy land through social media, through different games that we're playing online anyway, all of that. And it's just, when does it stop? And it doesn't have to stop. That's the interesting thing. Because we have our phones all the time. We have battery backups now with our phones. Heck, we're connected now to our watches. So even if our phone is in the other room, we still can see the messages coming through on our watches and our notifications. And so the truth is you're connected 24/7. And before when it was gaming, you were limited to only having to be at home or by that console. Now it's everywhere. So the only way to fix it is to be, like you said earlier, intentional. You've got to be intentional. You have to start setting guidelines around when am I on my phone? When am I not on my phone? What times do I start in the morning? What times do I stop in the evening? What breaks do I take throughout the day? And we have to be vigilant about this the same way that we are when it comes to eating junk food. The same way, now junk food is everywhere. You can eat and pig out on crap all day long, every day. And we have to set those limits and those, those boundaries for ourselves to make sure that we stay in a healthy state. And it's time to do that with our phones.
Sure. I agree 100%. I want to share some interesting statistics and we'll talk a little bit about them. But as adolescents 12 to 17 years and emerging adults 18 to 29 years access the internet more than any other age groups and undertake a higher risk of overuse of the internet, the problem of internet addiction disorder is most relevant to young people. I'm going to speak to this really quickly. I am the most unpopular mom in the entire world because my daughter, who is 9 going on 10, does not have a cell phone. I would say 90% of her friends have cell phones, and I constantly get the question, when am I getting my iPhone? When am I getting my iPhone? When am I getting my iPhone? And I constantly tell her, when you're old enough to have a job and pay for it, you can have a cell phone. And we do have iPads in our house. We do have computers. We have very limited time and we have very strict rules and parameters around them. I tell my daughters constantly, I can see everything you do and I will check everything that you do. And it's not an effort to try and control every movement of their life, but more in an effort to understand where they're at, what they're doing, what they're spending their time doing, because their little minds don't know consequences. They don't know boundaries. They don't know what's safe and not safe. And I've had some pushback from other parents because I've posted my very unpopular opinion that my child will not have a cell phone. And people are constantly like trying to say, like, how do they FaceTime and talk to their friends and communicate with you? And I'm like, well, when she goes to play at a friend's house, I text the parent. Or when she goes to play down the street, I walk down the street and pick her up. I mean, I just don't see a need as a 9-year-old to be constantly stimulated on a device where she can get into trouble. And in fact, I'm starting to hear things about some of her friends getting in trouble using their cell phones. These are not issues that a 9-year-old knows how to handle properly. They do not have the social skills or the understanding to know that these consequences severely impact them. Yes, we talk about digital use. Yes, we talk about technology use, why it's important that it's used for good and that it's used for bad. We've had these conversations, but they're not fully developed cognitively, and they're going to say and do things that can land them in a place where they don't realize the impact of what they've just done. So I am definitely the unpopular mom, and I'm going to stand my ground. Every child, it seems, has phones now, but I want my kids to have a childhood. I want them to grow up using their imagination, not a phone to imagine their world.
And hopefully more people that listen to this take action and, brace yourselves, but take the phones away from your kids. It needs to happen. We talk about the human interaction and not having that, right? And we're adults and we still can send text messages. We can hide behind our phone. We say things a little bit more boldly than we probably would in person because we're not face to face, right? And now you're talking about a 9-year-old girl, and 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old men and women can't comprehend necessarily the impact that they're having by hiding behind their phones. And you're expecting a 9-year-old to be able to do it? It's absurd. And so you've got to take the phone away because your child has to learn how to interact with other humans. They have to learn what is offensive. They have to learn what is nice and what is not, and what is mean, and what can you say and what can't you say. Listen, I'm the youngest of 6 and I have 2 older brothers, and sometimes you popped off at the mouth and you got popped back, and that's how you learned. If I was hiding behind a phone, at 6, 7, 8 years old, I would have said some wild stuff.
I wouldn't have interacted with my family. I would have been like, I'm not just going to play on my phone here. No, it's crazy. And the respect thing too. My daughter came home from school yesterday and she said, Mommy, so-and-so got in trouble at school because she got a call on FaceTime on her phone and she answered it in class. And I was like, what? Like, this is why you don't have a phone. And this is like where we go to, concerts and to movies now, and people constantly have their phones on. And it's like, we say at the beginning of shows and entertainment, like, turn your phone off, and people still don't turn their phone off. Like, we really have lost a lot of boundaries and respect with technology as well. We can't just sit and be and enjoy the moment. So anyway, I digress from that conversation. I know.
Let's not digress. Let's jump back, because I want to talk a little bit more about the kids, because this is such a big deal, right?
Sure.
Mine are 2 and about to be 5, so I don't have the struggle of, hey, my friends have phones. But I do have the struggle of the screen and of iPads and wanting to play games and things like that. And I want to talk about this because it matters. We're overstimulating our kids as well, right? I mean, how could we ever expect them to enjoy a walk through nature, right? Where the leaves just blow a little bit, where a bird flies by, a little bug or a butterfly flies by, when they can watch television or they can play on an iPad and it's flashing and blinking. I can jump over here and I can do this and it's making this crazy sound and that crazy sound. And, oh, look, I just won 500 coins for doing this. And now I bought this digital whatever, right? Whatever the reward is. And how can we ever expect them to sit outside and enjoy nature, right? And we know that that's one of the things that's going to help us heal from our digital addiction is get outside and enjoy nature. And so I just want to talk about, because there's the one side of it with some of the older kids where they are losing that human interaction and they're not having those boundaries. But across the board, we're overstimulated, right? We talked about before having that time to decompress, having that time to just sit. And it's challenging sometimes. I go and sit outside and I have to consciously think, don't pick up your phone. Don't look at your phone. Let's just enjoy this lake that we're looking at. And I just want to bring that full circle for all the kids. We go out to dinner and you see all the kids with the iPhones and the iPads. And I understand it's easier, right? It's easier to throw that in front of them. But consider what you're doing to their little minds, and consider that you're setting standards that nature and life can't keep up with.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just a kid thing, it's an adult thing too. One of the things, I'll just say this really quickly, just a tip or a trick. One of the things I've tried to do frequently with my kids, and we're not perfect at it, but we'll take card games to dinner or to brunch or to whatever. And instead of sitting down, like, can I play on your phone, Mommy? And I actually have a rule. My kids have one game on my phone. And it's like, if I'm in a meeting and I know I'm going to be there for an hour, I let them play because I know, like, they can't go outside because I can't see them. I have to keep them where I can keep track of them. I haven't brought anything else today. I forgot to bring something else. Like, this literally happens once in a blue moon. Like, I have one game, but for the most part, they'll come to me and say, can I watch YouTube on your phone? Absolutely not. They are not allowed to play on my phone. They don't have all these games on my phone. They don't have all these things on my phone. They are not allowed to play on my phone. And the other thing too is, like, back to taking things with you. card games, coloring books, toys they can play with at the table. Like, people don't think about this anymore. You can take that stuff to a restaurant or to an appointment or to a meeting and stimulate your kids in that way. And it creates this connection. So there's so many things we can replace it with. So you spoke about just not being connected, not being in tune. We should be spending more time with people, more time in nature, but we're addicted. This is an actual addiction. This is something we've got to title as an addiction, and almost all of us are addicted. So some of the stats, bankmycell.com has pulled around smartphone usage specifically. The average smartphone user checks their device 63 times a day. 86% of smartphone users will use their device while speaking with friends and family. Like, on the phone speaker, here I am scrolling. I've been guilty of that, I will say. 58% of users attempted to limit their usage in the past, and only 41% felt they were successful. 87% of users check their phone within 1 hour of waking or going to sleep. I'm sure there's a lot of people, it's like, wake up, look at the phone. 69% of users check their phone within 5 minutes of waking in the morning. So 87% in 1 hour, 69% in 5 minutes. So in general, we're all spending way too much time on our phones. Another statistic, the average time for people on their phones in the US is 4 hours a day. This is including tablets. As these devices become more integrated into our personal and digital lives, this increase in time is a depiction of both our culture and a technology shift. Another stat, the average user in Brazil spends over 5 hours a day on their device. 5 hours a day. Think about that. And it's funny because we constantly talk about being too busy, not having enough time in our day, not having, enough time to get our things done. This truly is an addiction. And when you think about it in that context, what is addiction? This is something we can't go without. We can't live without. We constantly have to have. It fills a need in our brain, not only emotionally and mentally, but physically, that we can't go without for long periods of time. We have to get that back to feel good, to get that high, to have those endorphins. It's tied to that behavioral addiction. So it's not really surprising to me that 4 and 5 hours a day are the usage that we're seeing from people on their phones. But one thing I want to talk about today is, how is that usage impacting us behaviorally, emotionally, physically? Because just like any other addiction, whether it be drugs, food, gambling, sex, it doesn't matter. We have significant impact from addiction. And we don't talk about this particular addiction like an addiction. Well, we all just use our phones. Well, we're on our phones a lot. Yeah, we use our phones a lot. Yeah, we're on our phones a lot. No, we are addicted to our phones. That has lasting impact, long-term effects, and it has impact on our health, our long-term health. I think it's such an important conversation, and especially when we look at the stats that cell phone usage is starting younger and younger and younger and younger. What do we need to be aware of as far as how this is impacting us from a health perspective? And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's so much that you touched on. Like, I'm trying to figure out where to go, right? I mean, one is it's absolutely an addiction, and we have to look at it that way. And quite frankly, we're all addicted, right? And the first thing is you just got to admit it. Admit that you're addicted to your phone. So that at whatever level, right? You may not be a 5 hour a day.
You can put
level.
a name on it, because there's actually a name for smartphone addiction. It's nomophobia. So we're all nomophobes, just in case you wanted to know.
I mean, the health impact is big. And this is aside from even the EMFs and the radiation, and we could do a whole nother episode about that. But I'm just talking about the mental health that comes into this. And how is this affecting our society? How is this affecting our characters? Right? How is this affecting the way that we interact? I mean, you talked about, and I don't remember what the statistic was exactly, but that we are, when we're talking to friends, that we end up interacting on our phones. I mean, when's the last time you were with somebody in person, and it might have even been a friend you haven't seen for a while, and you get a text message and you pull out that phone and you read the text message while you're there with your friend? What do we teach our kids when two grown-ups are having a conversation and they come in and they say, Mom, Dad. Hey, say, excuse me, wait till your turn, wait your turn, I'm having a conversation.
Yep.
But we as adults, we respond to that text message ding or that vibration in our pocket, and we ignore that person that we're with. And the signal that we're telling that person that we're with, you're not as important as my phone and what's going on my phone.
Sure.
And then you just look at that text message and then you see, like, I got a notification on Facebook. Let me see what's going on Facebook. Now you're telling this person that you're with that all these other people's lives are more important than they're like, I'm just going on a rant for a second, but yes.
But think about what you just said. What happens with traditional, what we would call traditional addictions? We don't necessarily look at phone usage as addiction, but you're talking about the same patterns and behaviors as people who are addicted to drugs, sex, gambling, pornography. Nothing's
Smoking.
more important than that addiction.
Exactly.
And you'll lie, you'll put people second, you won't have relationships with real people because you have a relationship with that addiction. I think you just need to think about that for a minute, really internalize that. And that takes us to our next point. I want to talk about how this is affecting us. Addiction is not just the addiction and not being able to live in and focus in your present life because you're focused on that addiction, but how is it impacting us from a health perspective? So there are research and studies that have been done that look at phone usage dependence and how it can impact both physical and mental health. Some of the things they're talking about now are anxiety, stress, narcissism, depression and loneliness, attention deficit disorder, and sleep deprivation. Think about all these things they just talked about. All of these things, when we've talked about health in the past, are significant factors in shortening our lifespan, in shortening our health throughout our lifespan and our quality of health and how much happiness we have in our lives and how we regulate our emotions, our mood. Stress and anxiety are some of the biggest factors that can age us more quickly when it comes to our long-term health. Depression and loneliness. And it's funny that to me that a depression and loneliness is one of the impacts on our health, because here we think we're connecting to people. Here we think we have all these people who love us and care about us or tell us how it is or teach us things. And technology is a powerful tool, but research is showing that we're getting more depressed and more lonely being more addicted to our phones. So that speaks volumes about the kind of connection we're getting from our phone versus having connection with real people.
I mean, it's pseudo companionship, right? I have 500 friends on Facebook. And all of a sudden you feel popular. And I made a post and I got 25 likes and look how important I am. But yet you're sitting at home on a Saturday night on your phone, right? And you don't have anybody to spend that time with, or you feel lonelier and more disconnected than ever. I've got teased a lot because on Facebook I have like 35 friends, and people are like, why don't you have more friends than that? Well, my answer is always, if you won't help me move, then we're not friends, right? We're not friends on Facebook. And that's my own personal thing, because I don't want it to get in the way of reminding myself that I want to have a personal connection with people. And even if I'm on social media, the people I want to be connected to are people that I care about and I'm truly friends with, right? And so we have these 600 friends, we have these people that we may have never met, and now we're trying to impress them, we're trying to impress all these other people. I'm gonna end up down another rabbit hole, so I'll stop myself. But the point is, the depression and the loneliness is at an all-time high because
Absolutely.
We don't have that person-to-person interaction. And we're not giving ourselves that time to decompress. We're not going and walking in nature, right? Go tell somebody to go for a walk, and what are they going to grab? Their phone. And on their phone, they're going to go to social media and go on a walk. I went on a walk.
They're going to take, I'm so guilty of this. I'm going to take pictures and videos of my whole walk, and I've got to have it on my phone, and I've got to capture it. Like, one of the most beautiful things that happened to me, I was at an event just last weekend, and like I'd gone through this whole day, and like I literally only took a couple pictures. I look at my phone and I'm like, I don't have pictures with any of these people at this event. And I was like, that's kind of nice. Like, that means I was there, I was in the moment, I was focused, and I was like, I don't have any proof that I was with all these people, but I really don't care because I was there, and it means I was talking and I was connecting and I was getting value from these people. And I think we rarely have moments like that anymore, where it's like we don't have 50 million pictures of one event. It's like we have 50 million pictures of every event because we got to take pictures on our phone, and we're taking pictures of the thing we're looking at, but we're not looking at the thing we're taking a picture of. There's a filter of a phone. I mean, think about that for a minute. It's like, it's wild, and I'm totally guilty of it, but it is true. It's like we're looking at this beautiful waterfall, but we're looking at it through our phone because we're getting the picture.
It blows my mind. Like, you see parents at kids' events, my daughter's in gymnastics, and they're holding up a phone, filming their daughter doing the balance beam. And they're watching the freaking phone,
Yeah.
and their daughter on the phone. When the daughter's there in real life,
Yeah.
she's beyond the phone. If you just put the phone down, you can actually watch your daughter on the balance beam,
Yeah.
not watch her through your phone.
Yeah.
And I understand people want to document everything and do all that, but it's absurd. How often are you going back and watching those videos?
Sure.
Are you turning those videos into DVDs that you're watching later with your family, right? How many of these pictures have you taken, other than maybe going back every once in a while, scrolling them or sharing them on social media? Are you really going back, right? As opposed to, let's just enjoy the moment. Let's use our brains again.
Sure.
Let's consider locking something into memory, and maybe our brains will be a little bit stronger rather than depending on our phone to solve all of our problems.
Sure. I want to touch on the sleep deprivation for a minute. So we did an episode on sleep and how critical it is for our body to heal, to rejuvenate. It helps our mind to take and process information and store information, critical information. There's so many benefits. You can go back and check out that podcast all about sleep. But we know that blue light from our phones, and that stimulation from internet, cell phone usage, iPads, computers, makes it much more difficult for us to go into a deep sleep and fall asleep more easily at night. There's a lot of research behind that. So imagine, you're trying to get good sleep, you're not getting good sleep, you can't figure out why you're not getting good sleep. It probably has a lot to do with what you're doing before you go to bed and your sleep hygiene, if you will. We know that stimulation from technology makes it much harder to go to sleep and to get good, deep sleep. So when we talk about long-term impact on our health, sleep is so underestimated when it comes to our health and why we're not healthy, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep as adults. And think about kids, okay? We have a huge issue with health in our country here in America and then across the world, with kids being unhealthier than ever before. And I am a big believer in kids getting enough sleep. There's research to prove why kids need sleep. We could go and talk all about that, but a lot of kids aren't getting enough sleep. I think another issue we face is not just adults using technology, but we're letting our kids use technology before bed as well. Again, you cannot underestimate the power of sleep on your journey to health and being healthy. And this overstimulation of technology, this addiction to technology, not only is it helping us to feel more depressed, more lonely, more stressed, but losing good sleep, you can't get it back. You cannot get back the loss of sleep. You can only try and improve your sleep from this point moving forward. Once the damage is done from lack of sleep, it's done. So I really wanted to touch on that point when it comes to cell phone usage and how much it impacts us having good sleep hygiene and being able to get restful sleep.
I mean, our culture is so go, 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 right? And especially a lot of social media influencers that talk about hustling, and you got to hustle and keep going. I survive on 4 hours of sleep and 5 hours of sleep. Like, that's a badge of honor. And we really are learning more and more that it is not. Like, it is detrimental to your health to not get enough sleep. And so, yeah, I mean, the blue light has a huge impact on being able to calm your brain down and being able to fall asleep. The other thing too is the anxiety that comes into play from being on your phone. How many times have you laid at night and maybe you got a text message from a friend, or you saw a social media post, somebody commented on your thing, and now it's kept you up at night because you're not sure, what did they mean by it? Did they mean this? Did they mean that? And that's a challenge too with the digital connection, especially with texting, is now you have no context. I couldn't see your eyes when you said this. I couldn't hear the tone in your voice. I couldn't hear all of these different things that give me cues to know, are you being nice? Are you being mean? Are you being threatening? Are you being loving? All of these things. And I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like 70% of communication is nonverbal. So when I'm sitting here talking to you, I can see your body language. I can see your facial expressions. I can see all these things. The words coming out of your mouth is only 30% of what you're communicating to me. When we text and when we read comments, we're only getting that 30%. And so we're left to try to decipher what the other 70% is. And left to our own devices, I hate to say it, but we typically go down the negative route, right? We typically think about the worst case scenario, or maybe they meant this, or maybe they meant that. And so that anxiety that comes into it is affecting our sleep and affecting us in so many ways. And so I just want people to really understand that difference. It's one of the things, even inside of our business, we use a software on the phone called Voxer. So you're at least leaving verbal messages, because too many emails, too many text messages get taken out of context. And that's just business. Imagine all in your personal life, how many texts you've taken out of context, how many comments you've read out of context.
And the stress and anxiety it brings.
Exactly, and the stress that it brings to you.
So I want to touch on one last thing to close out this episode today. I talked earlier about how we're using our phones 4, 5+ hours a day, and we constantly have, going back to stress and anxiety, not enough time in a day, not enough time to get things done. I can't get that project finished. I have big plans, but I ran out of time. Imagine getting 25 to 30 hours of your life back. That's almost a full work week that we're using on our phones, a full work week that is going to our phones. 5 hours a day. Imagine how much you could improve your body with one of those hours. Imagine taking 1 hour to send messages of love to people and to tell people that you care about them, or sending them a video message so they can see your face. Imagine using one of those hours to build a project that you've had a passion to build for so long. You do that 1 hour every day. Imagine using that 1 hour a day to meal prep healthier meals for your body. We're talking about 5 hours a day. One of the things I love to coach people on and teach people on is better time management. I get that question all the time. How do you have time to do this, and this? It's being intentional. And one of those things we can be more intentional with is our usage of our time on our phones. We're actually going to stop here today, because next week we're going to come back to you and give you some tips and tricks and ideas to take this time back in your life, to reconnect with people, to reconnect with yourself and your body. This phone usage, this technology usage is impacting us so significantly. And when we talk about time management, using our resources, building and creating the life that we want, being intentional with our life, which is something I'm a huge proponent of and something I practice in my own life. If we cut a lot of our phone usage, our technology usage out of our life, we get so much back in our lives, years on our lives, and time that is just wasting away. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just drew a blank because I had something I was going to say on that point, and then it just went away from me. So what I'm going to say is let's leave the episode there. What I would say is check your phone. You can see how much usage how much you are using your phone right now. It's on all your iPhones. I don't know the exact, navigation to get you there, but it's in your settings. Look at it and make a commitment to yourself to cut it back by maybe just 1 hour a day, right, for the next week. Now, I've suffered from a lot of addiction, from smoking, drinking, to other things. And I personally feel like the best way to cut an addiction is cold turkey. I think just saying that to some people will give them the sweats, thinking about cold turkey, their phones, and not being that committed. I will say cold turkey for your kids is probably a great solution. But for you, consider backing it off an hour a day over the next month. And it really can be easily done by just being intentional. Waking up, looking at your phone, and choosing to leave the phone on the nightstand and not look at it, and just go get ready. Go take your shower, go shave, brush your teeth, do your morning routine without looking at your phone in between every one of those actions. Go make breakfast, but leave the phone in the other room. These little decisions where you don't need to be looking at your phone from the bedroom to the kitchen, right? You don't need to be looking at your phone from the kitchen to the car. You don't need to be looking at your phone at the stoplight on your way to work. All of these conscious choices to just leave your phone there and not picking it up is going to cut that time back. And I honestly believe you will feel the stress start melting away from your body, the anxiety melting away. You're going to start sleeping more. And what you're going to find is that you don't want your phone more and more, right? The less I smoked, the less I drank, the less I wanted those things. And that's a place that I think is a really healthy place to be, using your phone for when you need to make a phone call, when you want to check in. I mean, I'm not saying to cut it out completely, but let's consciously dial it back. So with that said, we're going to give you a bunch of tips on how to do that on next week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Terry Ann. If you guys are looking for the transcripts, looking for more ideas, show notes, go to empoweringyouorganically.com, and you can see the video of this podcast, all of our past podcasts, all of the transcripts from podcasts, all of the notes, everything you could ever need related to this podcast is there for you absolutely free. And I have to ask you to please subscribe on iTunes. The more people that subscribe on iTunes, the more iTunes will show us as a recommended podcast for others that are listening to similar podcasts as ours. The more that they recommend us, the more that we're able to reach more people, and maybe we can get more and more people to put their phones down, be healthier, live longer, and be happier. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Please tune in next week as we continue with part 2.
Thanks, everyone.